forces in Syria?
Yeah, so one of the things that we do constantly is we respond to forces. We're operational security, OPSEC, is critical to us anywhere our soldiers, sailors, airmen, or marine operate, whether it's in a maritime environment, on land, in the air. And we do see aggressive behavior from the Russians. We've seen that with some of the intercepts that we've seen. We've seen it over the past couple of years and how they've interacted with our naval vessels. We've seen it in this current, in the current situation with the patrols coming across each other. But I can tell you that American forces have rules of engagement designed to protect them, to allow them to defend themselves. There was an unfortunate incident when Russians, purportedly Russian mercenaries, attempted to overrun one of our forward operating bases in Syria a couple of years ago. That didn't end too well for them, and because again, President Trump gave our soldiers in that instance the ability to defend themselves, with air power, with long-range fires, with their own resources. So, we're going to make sure that everywhere we operate, whether it's operating a place that's in close proximity to the Russians, to any other adversary, that the men and women in uniform will be able to defend themselves and protect themselves.
Has that warning been communicated to the Russian government?
It's been communicated to them very clearly.
By you or by the president?
It's been communicated at the appropriate level.
And to whom was it in Russia specifically?
I'm not going to get into those details because we want to have those channels open, but they've received a very strong message.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ambassador O'Brien. I wanted to follow with a couple on China. I'm wondering what specifically you're seeing from China that makes you believe that they have a bigger or harder working electoral interference operation than Russia or other countries, and then based on that, or the litany of other concerns that you've described about China, if you could kind of tell us the status of efforts by the administration to either go after Chinese firms or imports or diplomatic issues with China.
Yeah, so let me talk about the China situation overall. So probably the biggest failure of American foreign policy over the past 40 years is how we've dealt with China. There was this mantra that somehow as China became richer, as we turned a blind eye to Chinese malign activity, whether it's stealing our IP or engaging in unfair trade practices or bullying its neighbors, if we just turned about bullying its own people at Tiananmen Square, if we would turn the other cheek, turn a blind eye, that China would become richer. As it became richer and the middle class in China grew, they'd become more like us. And we always want to believe that everyone wants to become like us, that they become more Western, more democratic. In fact, all the opposite occurred. China's human rights violations have gotten worse and worse over the years, whether it's the Uyghurs or religious minorities or their neighbors, the people who enjoyed democracy in Hong Kong until just recently, the bullying of Taiwan. So we've seen very malign Chinese activity. The theft of intellectual property has gotten so bad that Christopher Wray, the director of the FBI, recently called it the greatest wealth transfer in human history, was a theft by the Chinese of our intellectual property. Now, that's not just an abstract concept, okay? That's sweat equity. That's American innovators. That's people that have put their whole life into dreams. People who've invented things in their garages. People who've built companies. Who've done everything they can to create an idea and turn an idea into a reality. And then what happens? That idea gets stolen by China, and it's not just that they've lost the economic value of their innovation or of their method of doing business. The Chinese have taken it, sometimes using slave labor, but using cheaper labor, often manufacture products that compete at a lower price, and then put the original person who invented the technology out of business, and then kill the industry for the United States, and whole industries go to China, whole manufacturing plants go to China. I mean, it's been really astounding. Chris Wray said that, also said that the FBI is opening a new espionage case against the Chinese every 10 hours. I mean, the scope of Chinese activity against the United States is relentless. We've never seen anything like it. It was nothing like this in the Cold War with the Soviets. So this President Trump, stood up to the Chinese for the first time in 40 years. He put tariffs on the Chinese. We had a phase one trade deal that partially addressed some of the unfair trade practices and was a huge step in the right direction. But as soon as that was signed, we ended up with the president calls it the China plague or the COVID outbreak here. which made that somewhat irrelevant because of the tremendous losses we suffered. Again, because the Chinese wouldn't share the virus samples with us early, wouldn't let CDC doctors come into China early to investigate, wouldn't let WHO doctors come into China to investigate, wouldn't restrict travel from China to overseas, especially to Europe, when they were restricting travel within China. So again, well, look, when it comes to the election, everything that they're doing across the board, whether it's political influence through the Confucius Institutes, whether it's them trying to influence business leaders by saying, if you don't support us in the U.S., your companies won't have opportunities in China, and convey that to your governors and convey that to your political leaders. The massive, and I'm not going to go into all the intelligence, but the massive activities of the Chinese in the cyber realm, it's really an extraordinary thing that we're facing. And again, this is the first president that stood up to the Chinese. I hope he's not going to be the last president who stands up to the Chinese. And as difficult as the problem is, let me tell you, I'm confident in the United States of America. I believe at the end of the day, we're going to prevail. We've got a peace through strength foreign policy, finally, that we've been missing for some time now. We're investing in our defense. We're taking strong action on the diplomatic front against the Chinese. We're taking strong action on the trade front. We're protecting our intellectual property. We're not going to, we've called out the Communist Chinese Party. We're taking strong action and have massive sanctions on the Chinese for the first time because of their treatment of the Uyghurs or their treatment of Democrats in Hong Kong. I think at the end of the day, our allies are going to follow us, which you've seen happening with 5G and Huawei. And we're seeing many, many countries, including our closest allies, turning away from the Chinese, turning away from Huawei, and going with trusted providers on 5G. So I think at the end of the day, America is going to prevail. I think President Trump's vision of free markets and free women and free men is an attractive message, not just to our allies, but to even people within China. So, I'm confident in the future, but I'll tell you, this is a challenge. It's a heck of a challenge. But I'm convinced that under President Trump's leadership, the American people are up to the challenge.